everyone. Welcome to the Love Alchemy Sessions, Episode 3. My name is Carrie Tumenia. I am an energetic love coach, and my sole purpose here is to make your dating life, your love life, and your self-love life more epic than you ever imagined. The first two episodes of the Love Alchemy Sessions were all about general esteem issues, and I highly recommend that you check those out if you haven't already. But this week, I want to talk about something really specific, a specific phenomenon that you may or may not have experienced in your dating life. See if you can relate at all to this story. You meet a guy. Maybe you're swiping through an app, at a friend's party, or even at a bar, and you get to talking. You make some connection. You start messaging, you start talking, and everything seems great. You feel connected enough that you make plans to have a date next week. And when that date finally rolls around, it ends up being the best date of your dating life. It was amazing. There was an amazing connection. You went totally after hours and stayed out till 2 or 3 in the morning. You talked, he made you laugh so hard you spit your beer, and you felt totally in sync. And immediately part of you was like, hey, didn't expect this, but awesome. You keep that connection going, maybe for a couple weeks, maybe for a couple months. You see each other a bunch. You plan a bunch of interactions. He texts you all the time. He calls you all the time. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he is gone. Disappears. Stops answering your texts, stops answering your calls, and gone. This week in my coaching practice, I worked with a group of women who all came to me with the same theme, the same issue, guys who ghost. So we're talking about Mr. Disappearing Act, the guy with whom you feel some great connection, and then he exits stage left for one reason or another without explanation, or he abruptly ends what you thought was an amazing connection and a great potential relationship. Sometimes this might happen a couple weeks in. Sometimes you might even be months into official coupledom, and suddenly he's gone. And what these women all had in common this week is that they spent sometimes days, weeks, or months trying to figure out what they did wrong, trying to figure out what was wrong with them. Did they scare him off? Did they say something wrong? Did they offend him? Did they do something? Were they not pretty enough, fun enough, exciting enough, outgoing enough, etc., etc., etc.? And the first thing you need to know about disappearing acts, about guys who ghost, because you're bound to run across one at some point or another, is however a guy or a girl exits your relationship, whether it be abruptly, whether it be unexpectedly, whether you were having issues all along, no matter how the relationship ends, it means nothing about your inherent worth and value. In fact, it probably has nothing to do with you at all, and I'm going to tell you why. There was a study published in 2017 in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that found that defensive moves in relationships, defensive moves like suddenly breaking up, like cutting off contact, like ending the relationship abruptly, those types of moves were almost always rooted in secret feelings, uncommunicated feelings of a lack of hope in the person's insecurities and life direction, not actually rooted in the merits of the relationship at all. Let me say that again for you. This study, published in 2017, found that defensive moves like ending relationships abruptly, so guys who ghost, was almost always rooted in uncommunicated lack of hope in the direction of a person's life or in insecurities, not in the merits of the relationship at all. So when guys do this, when guys disappear, when they ghost you, it probably has nothing to do with your actual interaction. It probably has nothing to do with you or the relationship at all. And it's really just a reflection of where that person is in their own insecurity, in their own feelings, and in their own overall direction in their life. 3 things that you have no control over. Doesn't matter how thin you are, doesn't matter how pretty you are, how funny you are, or how nice you are, how empathetic or understanding you are. You have no control over any of those things. Those factors have nothing to do with you. We as women, and sometimes as men, have this amazing tendency to assign meaning to our interactions with other people. We date a person for however long. Sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks, and sometimes it's months, sometimes it's years. And the direction and the outcome of that relationship, we use it as something to assign meanings about ourselves. We make up these truths, these things that we take as truths. I wasn't good enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't enough in some way. And we take that meaning and we run with it. And suddenly it is everything to us. And what I want to invite you to do is to recognize that if you are secure in your own self-love, if you are secure in understanding that your experiences with other people never have anything to do with your inherent worth and value as a person, and if you can free yourself to, instead of assigning meaning to every interaction you have, every romantic interaction you have with another person, if you could view dating more like trying on shoes, more like going into your favorite shoe store, going to the section that has your size, trying on a pair of shoes that you love the look of, and then being okay with the fact that they're totally uncomfortable, even though they're the correct size. And so you move on to the next pair of shoes until you find the one that fits you. Just because that first pair of shoes was uncomfortable and didn't fit, it doesn't mean anything about your feet. There's no inherent message about whether your feet are right or good enough or thin enough or pretty enough. It just didn't work out. It just wasn't what you were looking for. It just wasn't comfortable. And your romantic interactions, your dating life is the same thing. So if you can settle yourself into a place of, yeah, this guy ghosted. I'm disappointed. It sucks. I wish I would have an explanation. Those things are okay. But I know that it means nothing about me and everything about where he is right now. Then you become not only so powerful in your own created divine worth for yourself and able to move on and bring the next experience into your life, but it also allows you to give other people the freedom to just be where they are. Because almost always, that guy who ghosted you, it has nothing to do with you. It is an opportunity, however, to check your expectations. When we don't know someone very well, when either we haven't known them very long, or there's perceived intimacy but not actual intimacy, or they're putting up walls and blocks and not communicating where they are and what they want and what they're looking for, it becomes really easy to project our expectations and our hopes and our dreams onto that other person. And so we have this very relatively short interaction with this person, and we are placing the weight of our hopes and our expectations onto that relationship, when really the relationship hasn't stepped up to meet those expectations. The relationship probably hasn't stepped up to meet my hopes and my dreams. And so then we're no longer viewing that person and that relationship objectively. Because I can guarantee you this, if you've experienced someone who's ghosted you, if you've experienced someone who has just exited stage left with no explanation at all, I can almost bet money that some part of you, somewhere in your gut, you saw it coming before your conscious mind had time to process it. And if you look back in retrospect at those relationships, you probably knew it was about to happen. Some part of you felt off, or like it wasn't right, or it wasn't fitting, or he wasn't totally present, or it wasn't totally there. But we ignore those red flags. We ignore those things because we're hoping that will find the relationship that will lead to the culmination of all relationships. And we hope that so badly sometimes that we ignore signs that this one's not the right fit. So as you consider your past relationships where you may have been ghosted, I want to invite you to start to check your own expectations. Are they reasonable? Are you ignoring red flags in your interactions because you're hoping that this will be the one, or you're hoping the other person will change, or you're hoping that it will feel better down the road? What I'm going to leave you with today is, first, signs that a guy might be someone who might have a tendency to ghost you. These are, of course, to be taken with a grain of salt. We cannot predict everyone's behavior. That's never going to happen. But I'm going to give you some general red flags to kind of be aware of as you're dating, as you're meeting people. And then I'm going to tell you what to do in the face of a guy who's ghosted you. What then? What next? So the first thing I want to tell you is, again, signs you've met someone that might ghost you. Signs you've met someone that might disappear without notice. And the first sign is that other person is putting up walls. He's not allowing himself to be vulnerable. He's not allowing himself to be intimate, whether physically or emotionally. He's holding back. You have a sense or a gut feeling that he's bottling something up, or he isn't sharing everything. That's a good sign that he isn't in a place where he wants to be vulnerable or intimate to maybe the same level as you do. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just is where he is. The second sign is that you might sense whenever you're together that he's distracted or stressed out. There's just always something on his mind, and he never seems like he's really truly present. Those guys, especially if it's when you're alone together, are probably on the verge of checking out. If you meet a guy who talks about, or you know he's about to make a major life change, a big move, a graduation, a new job, a relocation, a promotion, guys on the cusp of those major life changes aren't necessarily guys who ghost, but the guys who talk about them continuously, the guys who always bring it up and always use it as sort of a veiled excuse as to why they're unavailable, or they can't make plans, or they're not sure where things are going to go, and they're not sure how it's going to affect their dating life, and they're just not sure what's going to happen. If it's some veiled excuse as to why they can't be vulnerable or available with you, then be prepared that when that big thing happens, or the closer they move to that big adjustment, it will probably be easier for them just to leave. Last, be wary of guys who struggle to be happy for your success. Women have this ability. We have this psychological phenomenon called basking in reflected glory. And that means that when people close to us, when our partners, when the people that we're dating, when our friends do well, we also feel amazing. We also feel like things are going well for us. Men don't tend to have that ability. So when men encounter women with whom they perceive that they can't keep up, with whom they perceive that the woman is having more success than they are, or more wins than they are, they actually take it naturally. They can't help this. They take it as an affront to themselves. Now, I'm not making a blanket statement about all men, and I'm not making a blanket statement about all women, but I'm telling you that these are the psychological tendencies. So men have a hard time. They interpret it as negative if they are with someone who is they perceive is doing better than they are. So if a guy struggles to be happy with your success, the probability is that your amazingness has triggered within him some form of insecurity. And remember that initial statistic that I shared with you, that almost all abrupt defensive moves in relationships like ghosting and breakups come from a place of lack of hope in one's overall life path and one's insecurities, and not the actual relationship. Those are some suggestions for things you can just keep your eyes open. Just bring some awareness into your dating life so that you're not taken off guard and you don't spend weeks and months trying to figure out what you did wrong. If you can embrace this idea again that when a guy ghosts you, it has nothing to do with you at all, nothing to do with something you did or didn't do or something you are or you are not, and it just wasn't a good fit. And you can give that person freedom to be where they are and know it means nothing about your worth. And you can move on to being open to the next pair of amazing shoes. When a guy ghosts, it is really important that for your health and well-being and to bring in other high vibe relationships and to move forward in your romantic life, it is really important that your investment be zero. Your emotional investment once a guy ghosts you needs to be nothing. Don't keep texting and emailing. Don't keep reaching out. Do not, under any circumstance, offer compromises for how to make it work, to keep it lighter, to make it easier, to just be friends, to just get to know each other longer, to just wait until he settles into the new job, the new location, the new whatever. Do not compromise what you require from a partner in hopes that this pair of shoes might one day feel more comfortable. If a guy ghosts you, he has communicated everything that you need to know about where he is and what he's willing and what he wants from the relationship. And chances are, if you have an issue with the fact that he disappeared without explanation, chances are you don't want the same things and you're ready for something different and something more. So don't bring yourself to a different level that doesn't truly reflect what you want just because you're hoping to keep tabs in case he changes or in case he changes his mind or in case he becomes more available. None of that. Don't stalk him on social media. Don't be friends with him on Facebook. Don't follow his Instagram. If he has ghosted you, there is not any healthy reason for you to be connected on social media. I know we don't like that, but it's true. Your job after you've been ghosted, aside from recognizing that it has nothing to do with your worth and value, and aside from recognizing that it's an opportunity to evaluate your expectations or maybe the patterns of men that you're bringing into your life, outside of those two things that have everything to do with you and nothing to do with the other person, your job is to move on with your life. And that's everything you need to know about guys who ghost. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope this gave you some insight. I hope that this shed some light for you on your maybe some past relationship experiences, maybe will help you avoid some ghosting experiences in the future. And above all else, remember that you are inherently and divinely worthy in every way of the love that you want. And if you can give it to yourself first and understand that every relationship experience you've had up until now means nothing about your worth and value, then you can bring more epic love into your life.